again on day 8 on a mini series that we started on how to create awesome relationship. We are so excited that you joined us again. And if you haven't seen the previous videos, we encourage you to go watch them. We are excited. And today we'd like to talk about setting boundaries in your relationship. Hi, my name is Chandy.
I am Martin.
So, what does it mean, or how, or why is it important to set boundaries?
So when we talk about boundaries, I know to some people it sounds kind of weird in a relationship, but the truth about it is this. Think about this. When you buy a plot of land, I remember my first property when I bought my first property and they put in boundaries and they just kind of remind me how important it is to always check to make sure that the pillars or the beacons are always there so that nobody will move the pillars or the beacons encroaching into my property. And that's exactly how it is. If we understand the importance of boundaries when it comes to properties, buying a land or owning something, it is also even more important when it comes to our lives, having boundaries. If you read the scriptures in the book of Proverbs chapter 4 verse 23, it talks about guide your heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. So when we understand that we need to protect the boundaries of our lives so that we don't expose ourselves to unnecessary, pressure, unnecessary things that we shouldn't be dealing with. So when it comes to relationship, it is so important to put boundaries and to understand the need for boundaries. And there are core areas we'll be looking at today when it comes to setting boundaries.
Yes, one of the areas is having boundaries in your family,
Right.
or having boundaries in your relationship,
Right.
and then boundaries in your marriage.
Right.
So when it comes to boundaries, it doesn't mean that you are not accepted. It just
Right.
allows you to be yourself,
Right.
and to be comfortable in your relationship. So how can we set boundaries in these areas that we talk about? Number one, you have to communicate your thoughts. You have to tell them what you want, how you want it to be done. Let's say, for example, in your relationship or in your friendship, you need to tell your friends, this is how I want you to speak to me. You don't
Right.
allow abusive behaviors.
Right.
You don't allow verbally behaviors. I used to remember one of my friends who would jokingly maybe say something that they may think that is funny, but
Right.
guess what? It hurts my feeling.
Right.
And then one day I had to stand up and say, I do not like the way you talk about stuff like this. And that helped me to go above and beyond that. When they would come back to speak to me, they know how to talk to me. So
Right.
you need to be able to tell them what you want,
Right.
by communicating your thoughts.
Also, so when we talk about boundaries in family, so I know like when a parents, you have a child and your child has been like your lovely babies and they grew up and happens to start their own family. As parents, as children, also, we need to understand there are boundaries that should in turn be established so that the family can continue to grow. Take, for instance, you understanding that your child or your daughter has their own family now, just respecting that and not just talking to your son or to your daughter because she's always your baby, and I mean just talking to them in a disrespectful way that could trigger something. And also, let's say when it comes to mother, father-in-law, it would be very, very important for you to stand up for your wife. It wouldn't be so good for you to expose your wife or your husband to your family so that they will use them and just talk to them anyhow. It is important to protect your wife or to protect your husband in front of your family, because actually the number one priority when it comes to you is your immediate family. And then I'm not saying that your parents are not important, but you don't want to allow them to mess up your relationship, because you're going to have a long time to spend with your husband and with your children. So just understanding, even with your children, that there are boundaries. You need to respect that boundary, not just talking to them anyhow and saying things that may be very abusive, like you already said, a friend's talking to you just jokingly, so using curse words. Those are things that God doesn't expect us to do as believers.
In Colossians, it says that we need to be gracious in our speech and
Right.
then season it a little bit with
Right.
salt. And that means that you need to also appreciate people by saying good things about them,
Right.
and not just being that abusive person. Yes,
Right.
we don't expect people to be abusive to us, but how about us? How is our heart? How is our heart telling people not to be able to do what we don't
Right.
want them to do? Say,
Right.
do to others what you don't want them to do to you. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Don't do to others.
Okay, what you don't want them
Right.
to do
So
to you.
don't tell me what to do. Right.
So that is part of setting boundaries.
Right.
And also I wanted to point out that if you communicate your thoughts, your feelings to people, ensure that you follow through.
Right.
There's something one of my favorite speaker and mentor says. It says the no anointed. What does that mean? It says no is a complete sentence.
Right.
If you say no, make sure you stand by it. Don't say no or maybe or yes.
Right.
But if you're gonna say no, don't be so pressured. If someone invites you to, like, let's say, to an event,
Right.
and you can't make it, but if you say no, that it's gonna hurt their feelings,
Right.
and then you're gonna be making yourself feel bad or
Right.
taking away
Right.
some of the things that
Right.
you're supposed to do, and
Right.
then you say yes, and you're not you're not going to be cheerful going
Right.
to that event.
Right.
You need to stand by your word. You
Right.
need to say no.
Right.
And then respect that. Follow through with
Right.
what you are supposed to do.
So when you talk about the no anointing, I know sometimes it's going to sound a little bit awkward, but that is so true. The truth is that you can't help everybody. Sometimes we are so passionate, we want to do, even Jesus could not heal everybody when he was here. He was able to do the things that he has the ability and the capacity to do within the conference of the body that he had at that time, because he was God at the same time a human being. Mm-hmm. So at some point Jesus was tired, he needed to rest. At some point he said, let's go over to the other side. We can't just continue to, you don't want to overboard, you don't want to be the super champion. You're doing it so that people will say, oh, he's nice, always nice. So learn and protect yourself and know that your body needs some rest, so you can't help everybody. And lastly, let me say this before I forget. There are so much more we can say when it comes to boundaries. Mm-hmm. Take for instance husband and wife. Yes, somebody will say, oh, what are you saying? Well, you are meant to be one. Yes, but at the same time we should respect our personal boundaries when it comes to our family. There are things that your wife may not be comfortable, or your husband may not be comfortable a certain way, he doesn't want to be addressed or something like that. Watch out for those things. Don't just say, oh, because I'm your husband, I'll talk to you anyhow, or go into physical abuse or things like that. So those things are boundaries. Those things are things we don't want to get ourselves involved into. So we encourage you today to set boundaries, and also to understand that boundaries does not mean rejection or that you are not being accepted.
Mm-hmm. So boundaries are here to help you to grow in your relationship,
Right.
and to make it awesome.
Right.
Ensure that you follow through. Ensure that you communicate your thoughts. Don't just assume that they know how
Right.
you're feeling,
Right.
or they know what you're thinking.
Right.
Ensure that you let them know, and then it's gonna help you to grow an awesome relationship. As always, think about it. Write down 3 things in your life that you would like to see boundaries set, and find out ways that you're going to do that. First, communicate your thoughts. Let them know what you think about it, and you're going to be blessed by it.
Awesome. So we hope you pick 1 or 2 things in today's video or today's episode. We hope to see you again in the next episode. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.